Hello guys, welcome to Study IQ. I'm Safir. In this session, I'll be summarizing all things that we have discussed in the last 2-3 sessions related to socio-religious reform movement, and also we have missed 3-4 of that, like Theosophical Society I will have to discuss, Satyashodhak Samaj I will have to discuss, and without mentioning Swami Vivekanand, 19th century socio-religious reform movements will be incomplete. So I will also be talking about Swami Vivekananda and the Ramakrishna Mission, and maybe I can also talk about Henry Vivian de Rosio. So this 4 I will discuss, but before that I'll try to summarize what all things we have done. We have discussed about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan Aligarh movement, which is a reformist movement from Islam, and then Raja Ram Mohan Roy Brahmo Samaj, which is a reformist movement from Hindu side, and then we discussed about Arya Samaj, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, which is a revivalist movement from the Hindu side, and then Wahhabi Movement, which was a revivalist movement from Muslim side. Okay, so this 4 is what we have discussed, and when I started off with this, I started off with the problems that the 19th century India was witnessing. There were some general issues and there were some specific issues, right? So if you are able to understand the 19th century India and the issues, then you can see the socio-religious movements from the perspective of these reformers, and that's what we actually need, right? So if you see here, the problems that the 19th century India was facing, there are some general issues like the educational system was bad, outdated, not updated, right? If you see from Islam side, it was modern when it came along with Mughals, but what was modern in 12th and 13th century, in 19th century it is outdated. Same was the case with the Hindu system. If you see Gurukul system, that's it's not updated from the Gupta period onwards. We have already discussed about Gupta period and the development during that time in the last session. Okay, and then there are a lot of superstitious beliefs across religion, and gender discrimination, which was practiced in all religion. And then there are some specific issues like sati, which is among the upper caste in North India, and then widow remarriage was not allowed. A female widow cannot remarry. On the other hand, a male widower can remarry. Same way, female infanticide on a particular caste, especially Rajputs, and then child marriage in the north and western part of India. So these are some specific issues that we have seen, and then after that we have understood what are reformist movement and then what are revivalist movement. Reformists are those who responded with the time and with scientific temper. They try to address things in terms of rationality, in terms of scientific temper, and they are okay to accept the modern notions and modern thoughts. Okay, so when it comes to revivalist, they are against the Western system. They think that the Western system and culture is ruining the Indian tradition, and they want to go back to the normal, old tradition. And you can see Wahhabi movement from Islam side, which is a revivalist movement. Arya Samaj from Hindu side, which was also a revivalist movement. And the slogan of Arya Samaj was actually to go back to Vedas. And if you see reformist movement, Brahmo Samaj by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Aligarh movement by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So now we will go specific into each of these. If you see Brahmo Samaj, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and he is known as father of modern India because of his rational thinking. He was the first Indian who started thinking rationally, more logically, and started questioning the existing practices. Right, so that's why we consider him as the father of modern India, and he was able to abolish sati with his volunteer works, right? So we have discussed all those, and then he had very good knowledge about Arabic, Sanskrit, Persian, Hebrew, all these languages, and because of that he was able to read the original religious textbooks and understood what is written in the original religious textbooks. Now the problem is, if you start reading the conversions or the translations, when you translate, not only the meaning but the charm is also lost. And especially if you see, most of the Hindu religious scriptures are poetic in nature. So when you translate it, it's not only the content, the charm is also lost. So you need to have very good knowledge about that original language if you need to understand that religion properly. So he understood all the religion, and he has seen there are a lot of good things in each of these religion. For example, he have seen that humanity from Christianity, and same way Islam, he was inspired with the concept of equality, and from Hinduism, spirituality. And also, he's triggered a movement which is known as movement of mind, not only confined to Bengal, it actually spread across. 1814, he established Atmiya Sabha in Calcutta. 1818, his friend David Harris started Hindu College and he started teaching over there. 1825, Vedanta College, and he introduced two new subjects, Voltaire's philosophy and mechanics. You can see Voltaire's philosophy, which is related to political science, mechanics, science. 1828, Brahmo Sabha, and later Brahmo Samaj. And Devendranath Tagore and Keshav Chandra Sen was associated with this, and they helped to spread this movement, especially Keshav Chandra Sen, spread this movement across India. And the objective is basically to promote monotheism. According to him, it is mentioned in Hindu literatures, Hindu scriptures itself, that God is one and he is formless. It's written in Bhagavad Gita that Iva Ika Dvityam Na Pratima Asti, means God is one and he is formless. And there is no idol. So here monotheism is what they are looking for, and no idol worship. Okay? Iva Eka Dvityam Na Pratima Asti. So opposed idol worship, that means belief in one God. And see, for him, he understood that the problem with inequality, discrimination and all because of this problem of multiple gods. Multiple God means multiple caste and multiple hierarchy. If you believe in one God, you actually believe in one mankind. And that's how you can actually achieve equality or one mankind. So that's the solution. And then 1829 Anti-Sati Resolution by Lord William Bentinck, under which Sati was declared as culpable homicide, not amounting to murder, and a rigorous imprisonment of 10 years was given for those who instigate or compel the female to commit suicide. And then he was opposed with the caste hierarchy, untouchability also, but there was no specific movement like in the case of Sati. And then he was, very much positive with respect to women education also. And he started essay writing on contemporary issues. First Indian language newspaper, Samvad Kaumudi by Rajaram Mohan Roy. Which language? Bengali language. Which year? 1818. What was the first newspaper which was published in India? The Bengal Gazette. James Augustus Hickey was the editor, which was English language. This one, Indian language, and it is Bengali. 1821, Miratul Akbar. Remember that Miratul Akbar, don't be confused with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. It's in Persian by Rajaram Mohan Roy. And then the Precepts of Jesus. These are two books, Tuhfatul Muwahidin. Remember these two names, guys, because you may confuse it with Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Tuhfatul Muwahidin and this one, Miratul Akbar. And born on 22nd May and died on 27 September 1833 in Bristol, and first among the Indian who started reform. Now let's discuss about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. He himself was a magistrate actually. The most important contribution is actually Aligarh movement. There are general contribution. Most important contribution is with respect to education, which was the Aligarh movement. And in his opinion, the Quranic laws must be reinterpreted. The laws like related to polygamy, Parda system, these are to be reinterpreted in the modern context. If you see polygamy, it was allowed in Islam that time because a lot of wars used to fight and a lot of Muslim widows and orphan girls were there. So for them, it is better for them to be a wife of someone rather than going for some other means for survival. So at that time, Islam allowed a man to marry more than one, but maximum 4. But there are a lot of other conditions also I have discussed before. And then education to be given for Muslim girls, and political and economic rights also need to be given. And then Mohammedan Scientific Literary Society to translate the developments which is happening in West. Okay, and then Tahsibul Akhlaq we have discussed. So education, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, which later on came to be known as Aligarh Muslim University. And then literary contribution we discussed. Now, when it comes to revivalist, most important one among Muslims is Wahhabi Movement, started by the person Wahhab ibn Arabi. He wanted to revive Islamic tradition as in the 7th century. Okay, that the time when Prophet Muhammad and 4 caliphs were living. Just need to remember the 4 caliphs' name, because anything who comes for the first time you should be knowing. Like when I talk about 1773 Regulating Act, Governor General plus 4 members. You should be knowing the 4 members. And after that, there are a lot of council members are coming. Do we even try to bother their names? No. But the first 4 members, Richard Barwell, Philip Francis, George Monson, John Clavering, you should be knowing that, along with Lord Warren Hastings. They all are equally important to Lord Warren Hastings, who was the first Governor General. Same way Prophet Muhammad and the 4 caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar Farooq, Usman Affan and Ali Abi Talib. Okay, now next we discussed about Shah Abdul Aziz and Syed Ahmad of Rai Bareli. They were mainly associated with this Wahhabi movement in India. So they gave a slogan of jihad. And their objective, 2 objectives was there. First is reform within Islam. That's considered good, no problem. You reform your religion. But the second one was the problem. That was to establish Islamic State. And I told you, this is something which is based on an ideology. This ideology, even if you suppress this movement, it will be there. It will continue in different form. And that's what you have seen as IS now. So in case if you are getting a question, mains question on Islamic State, from where you should be starting that? You should be starting that from Wahhabi movement, because that ideology of establishment of Islamic State was actually coming from here. Okay, so we discussed that, and then Battle of Balakot we discussed. Okay, so I talked about what is jihad and all those things. And then Inayat Ali, Vilayat Ali, the leaders. Headquarters was shifted to Patna. All those things I have covered there. And the Wahhabis' contribution in 1857 revolt we discussed. And the Pathan convict Shor Ali killed Lord Mayo when he visited Andaman Nicobar, that jail. That shows that anger that the Wahhabis have against the English. And then we also discussed the Wahhabi trial, which is very important, Patna and Ambala trial. Okay. And then they started fighting ideologically, because after the Wahhabis suppression through Patna trial and Ambala trial, most of them were jailed, most of them were hanged. So then now they are not going to fight with bullets and guns. They are going to fight ideologically. So they established Darul Uloom. Okay, and these 2 names you remember, Muhammad Qasim Nanotwi, Rashid Ahmad Gangohi. And then we discussed about various schools of Islam, Hanafi school, Shafi school, Hanbali and Maliki school. And then 19th century, okay. Now the Arya Samaj. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, originally Mool Shankar Tiwari, and he established in 1875 Bombay Arya Samaj, and headquarters shifted to Lahore 1877. The slogan was go back to Vedas, Vedic period 1500 to 600 BC. And for him, there are many issues that we are facing, but the solution for all the issues that we are facing is actually there in Vedas and Upanishads. So you just need to revive your tradition. So the solution is already there. You don't want the help from the Western system or the British. We have everything within us. We just need to revive our tradition. So go back to Vedas. Okay, and then most important point, like Brahmo Samaj, they opposed idol worship. Don't think that Arya Samaj is revivalist, orthodox, so promoted idol worship. No, opposed idol worship. You won't find idols in any of the Arya Samaj mantras. Okay, same way, they criticize some of the rituals of Hindu religion, and they try to simplify marriage rituals, etc. And then they promoted, I reiterate, they promoted intercaste marriage. Actually, as per the Hindu rule, intercaste marriage is not allowed. Caste endogamy within caste and clan exogamy is the marriage rule. But they promoted intercaste marriage. And I've told you the reason also. 1872, there was a Universal Marriage Act was passed by Lord Northbrook, under which already the government have legalized the intercaste marriage. So if you try to go against that, you will be simply jailed. Maybe that is the reason, but you should not be confused with this too, because you think that Arya Samaj, if it is Brahmo Samaj, okay, I'll go with this, promoted, because they are progressive, they are reformist. I'll go with the idol worship also. But Arya Samaj, if you start thinking logically, will they promote intercaste marriage? That's when you get into the trap. They promoted. Okay, and then this is where I've explained what is clan exogamy, what is caste endogamy, etc. And like I've discussed about Wahhabi movement, here also you reform your religion, go back to your tradition, everything is perfectly fine. But how it created problem and how it become communalizing the Indian society because of two reasons. There was a cow protection movement and they established this Gau Raksha Samiti, which created problem, which started communalizing India. And it was a movement started for the protection of cow, but it actually turned out to be a movement against Muslims and Christians. So it started communalizing the Indian society. And same way, Shuddhi movement. That's a purification ceremony. Some people have converted to Christianity and Islam from Hindus. And when they convert back to Hinduism, this is a ceremony which was conducted. So that also triggered some issues and communalized it. And then we discussed about after Dayanand Saraswati, they have divided into two, and one among them is moderates and the other is orthodox. They followed exactly the same tradition. Lala Hansraj and Lala Lajpat Rai, they are the moderates. They are willing to accept the changes, and they established this DAV school, Dayanand Anglo-Vedic school, just like Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College. And then the other group established a Gurukul, just like Wahhabi movement, Wahhabis established Darul Uloom. So you can see the parallel over here also. Okay, so that's what we have discussed so far. Now the next one that I need to discuss is actually the Theosophical Society. So Theosophical Society was established in 1875, New York, USA by Madam H.P. Blavatsky. Madam H.P. Blavatsky, who was a Russo-German lady, and along with her, Colonel H.S. Olcott. Okay, he was an American, and it was inspired by ancient Asian religions like Buddhism, Hinduism, and Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism means Parsi religion. Okay, and in 1882 they shifted headquarters to Adayar in Chennai, Madras. Okay, Adayar. So the idea is to propagate the message of spiritualism of Indian religion. So that is actually the idea or the objective of Theosophical Society, to propagate the idea of spiritualism of Indian religion, mainly three religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, and Zoroastrianism. And in 1893, Annie Besant joined, and in 1897 she became the president of this, and later he became the first women president of Congress also. And who was the first Indian woman who became the president of Congress? Sarojini Naidu. Okay, so this is about Theosophical Society. And then next one, Satyashodhak Samaj, or Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. Jyotirao Govindrao Phule. Okay, so 1870s Western India, Maharashtra. So it was actually a backward caste movement or Dalit movement to uplift the depressed class. To uplift depressed class or the caste in Indian society during 19th and 20th century. So 1873 he established Satyashodhak Samaj. He wrote a very famous book in Marathi, that is Gulamgiri, which means slavery. So who wrote this book, Gulamgiri? Dayanand Saraswati. In which language? Marathi. It means slavery. And he set up schools for Dalit boys and girls. So he wanted to give education to Dalits and the depressed class or the backward class, caste. Okay, so opposed caste hierarchy, obviously, and untouchability and all those things. And he also fought for the educational, political, and socio-economic rights of Dalits or the depressed caste. So that's about this one, Mahatma Jyotirao Govindrao Phule. Now we will briefly mention about Swami Vivekananda and we will complete the discussion. So he lived hardly 40 years, but the impact that he made was so strong. So he was a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Ramakrishna Paramhamsa was from Bengal, but not that well educated and all. But his belief, the famous quote is there: all religion are true religion. And Mahatma Gandhi also talks similar thing about religion, that different religions are different roads or the routes for same destination. Okay, so guys, when it comes to Swami Vivekananda, one thing that you need to understand is he strongly believed in karma. Whatever he preached, he practiced, not like others. You preach something, you practice different things. No, here he believed in karma, and karma means actions rather than preachings. Okay, so you will see he firmly believed in the theory of karma. And why he's famous for that 1893 he participated the World Religious Conference in Chicago, and that actually made him very famous. And he focused on balance between spiritual and material life. If you see, the problem with Indians are we are gone too far for spiritual life and we missed so much of other things. On the other hand, if you focus on the West, Europe, they have gone so much for materialism and the spiritualism, that element, the happiness and those things are missing. You may be very good on one side but not on the other side. So he want to have a balance between spirituality and also the material aspect. So he want to have both material versus spiritual. So West have gone far for material aspect and suffered. Same way Indians have gone so far for spiritual aspect but not other development. So because they are very poor, right? He focused on balance between these two. And he also defended the strong points of Hinduism, because generally West have a very negative perception of Hinduism. They consider it as very traditional, very orthodox, etc. And he addressed a very big audience, and he professed about his religion. He tried to highlight the good things about his religion, and he defended the arguments that the Western people raise against Hinduism. Okay, now in 1897 he founded Ramakrishna Mission. Guys, a very famous American journalist actually wrote after this conference that we are fools. Like, we were sending people to India where people like Swami Vivekanand were living. So something like that, he have made a very good statement in the next day, whatever it is. So 1897, Ramakrishna Mission, and the Ramakrishna Mission motto is for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. The actual thing is Atmano Mokshatham Jagat Hitaya. I don't know how is it pronounced, but in English it is for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. And he believed in social service, okay, not in social reforms. So far we discussed about social reforms, preachings and all those things. So he wanted to go for social service, do things practically. So that means for him it hardly mattered whether a person believe one god or multiple god, whether he worship idol or not worship at all. Okay, so those things he is not concerned. But if you are hungry, give him food rather than preaching whether God is one or many. And if he is sick, give him medicine, take care of him, rather than teaching him whether to worship idol or not. If he is not educated, educate him. So this is what he is looking for, social service rather than social reform. And he opened orphanages, schools, hospitals and widow homes. And if you look at this mission, unlike other missions, it have presence across the world, and around 34 countries the presence you will see, including US, UK, Burma, Pakistan, etc. Because human service have no boundary, no religion, no caste, etc. Okay, entire mission is actually to help the poor, to do the social service. So that's why you will see this across. Okay, so that's about Swami Vivekananda, and this is what I wanted to discuss. I hope you enjoy the session. I hope I have shared some good knowledge with you related to social religious reform movements. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up, and thank you so much for watching, guys. See you soon in the next session.